Chair Cap, I'm present. Bradford.
Here.
Cap. Not yet. Easlick. Ewing.
Yes.
Yes. Hancock. Lee. Councilman Stiles. Councilmember Taylor. Vice Chair Bowe. Councilmember Welsh.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people present. On public comment, we do not have anyone signed up for today, but we do have 2 guests that we will recognize when we get to that point. There also should be on everyone's table a memo from, or maybe it's just for me, but a memo from Council Member Spain on behalf of RS 2025-1237 due to his absence to the committee today. So with that, we do have, let's see how many resolutions we have. I did this yesterday and I have no memory. Okay. We do have approval agenda. I can take these as a consent for the resolutions and then go into the bills, unless folks want me to go through these one by one.
No.
Consent.
All right.
Second.
We got a first and second on that, so let me do that. That was an official vote, but let me read through these resolutions. Okay, item number one, that was a quick agreement, a consensus agreement that we will move forward with the consent agenda. So item number one, RS 2025-1232, a resolution accepting a grant from Nashville Parks Foundation to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Rec for programming improvements to Metro Nashville community centers to include music equipment for youth bands, Got Skills, sports clinics, sports league sponsorships, transportation, and supplies. Item number two, RS 2025-1233, a resolution accepting a grant from Centennial Park Conservancy to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Rec to provide funding for a one-time part-time position in the Parthenon Museum store. Item number three, RS 2025-1234, resolution accepting a grant from the Friends of Warner Parks to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through Metro Board of Parks and Rec to continue funding staffs and paper costs. Item number four, RS 2025-1235, a resolution accepting a grant from 2500 West Hyman LP to Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metro Board of Parks and Recreation to support construction of public restrooms at Fisk Park in North Nashville. Item number five, RS 2025-1236, a resolution accepting a grant from the Friends of Warner Parks to the Metro Government, acting by and through the Metro Board of Parks and Rec to provide seasonal staffing for the Special Work Education and Trials program at Warner Parks. Item number six, RS 2025-1237, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant from the Music City Disc Golf to the Metro Government, acting by and through the Metro Board of Parks and Rec to provide materials for and installation of a 9-hole disc golf at Brookmead Park. Item number seven, RS 2025-1238, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant from the McCabe Park Little League to the Metro Government, acting by and through the Metro Nashville Parks and Rec Department for improvements to the small baseball field at McCabe Park. Item number eight, RS 2025-1239, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant from the Friends of Sevier Park to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metro Board of Parks and Rec to purchase and install new soccer goals for the current soccer playing field at Sevier Park. Item number nine, RS 2025-1240, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant package from the Friends of Green Hills Park to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metro Board of Parks and Rec to install an exercise equipment station and a new water line in Green Hills Park. Are there any motions to move any item from the consent agenda?
Move the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Okay, it's first and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please indicate that. Any abstentions? Okay, the consent agenda passes 6-0. Just make myself a note. And let's move on to items on our bills on second reading. Well, I am going to take these one by one, just in case there are questions. Item number 10, BL 2025-818, an ordinance to amend Chapter 2.147 of the Metro code of laws regarding the Nashville Music, Entertainment, and Film Commission. Sponsors Stiles, Sepulveda, Welsh, Webb, and Evans.
Move.
Second.
Okay, there's a first and second. Are there any questions or conversations? Councilmember Easley.
Yeah, in this, I was reading today, there was a position added, or a title added, intimacy coordinator?
Added to the,
Yeah.
The list of professions.
yes,
Yeah.
list of professions.
What is that?
I tell you what, let me, wonderful question for enlightening, people want to be enlightened on this. But with that, thank you, Councilmember Eastlick. Would somebody from the administration want to be recognized, if you'd like to identify yourself?
Dave Rosenberg with the mayor's office. This legislation did not come from the administration. I'd be glad to speak to different elements. From what I understand in the entertainment industry, those are folks who are on sets to ensure
Yes.
performers, actors' safety in
Yeah.
During
intimate
sex
scenes.
scenes.
So I
If you have
will.
any sex scenes or something.
So if anyone's following a current entertainment issue between, anyways, there's.
Blakely.
Yeah, the Blake Lively situation where you do have to have a coordinator on set that arranges what's going to be comfortable for each actor. So I bet that's what that is. So.
That's exactly what that is. And it's clothing and positioning and who can be in a room when things are happening so that people are not put in uncomfortable
good.
situations. So that's
Thank
Much better answer.
Yes.
Thank you. You're welcome. So I know this. Councilmember Welsh, you're signed on to this bill. Would you want to? Do you have anything to add on this one, or?
No, this is a bill that CM Stiles and Sepulveda have worked together on to come to an agreement in terms
That's what I
of
thought.
the structure and whatever. And so I think it's in a good place, and I asked my colleagues to pass.
Wonderful. That's what
Approved.
that was my understanding. Do you have any comments, Dave, from the administration before we move for a vote?
Thanks, Mr.
Madam
Rosenberg.
Chair,
Mr. Rosenberg.
what did you say?
He said that's Mr. Rosenberg.
A few things I would note. First, it says that there are 15 members on the commission, but then it lists 19 different positions, so it should be 15 voting members. It creates the advisory committees. It doesn't say who appoints them, whether that's council, the commission chair, or some other mechanism. It doesn't call for any vetting of the members, and it says they're subject to the ethics restrictions, but doesn't subject them to the Board of Ethical Conduct or create any kind of mechanism for removal. And then I know there are HR-related things if Director Hall can mention her thoughts.
Okay, one second. I'll recognize you, Director Hall. Our colleague, will you want to ask a question
I have
first, Councilmember?
More of a concern, listening to that, hearing that there's kind of still some gray areas as to who does the appointing, how they're removed, the vetting. And this is a bill on second reading, therefore I'm assuming it cannot be amended on third. I'm kind of hesitant about moving this forward while there's still some of those outlying questions. What does the administration, do they think this bill's ready to move forward with some of those holes?
I mean, really, it's up to the council. I mean, from the perspective, I don't know if this will accomplish the commission being able to move its mission forward in any meaningful way.
Let me ask Director Hall, did you want to express, and we'll move forward in just a second to make a council or a committee decision, but Director Hall, did you want to share anything?
I think this wasn't necessarily, the provisions around Metro HR's involvement weren't necessarily discussed with me, which is totally okay. My understanding is that the commission may or may not use HR, which is also their prerogative for the selection of the executive director. I do read this appointment being of the mayor, so the mayor is the appointing authority, clarifying that we are happy to support any board or commission, the selection and the recruitment process of an executive director, but we cannot provide necessarily administrative support to the commission. I just want to clarify that, just given its current state. We don't have the bandwidth. It's not because we don't want to be helpful, but we will help any administrative part that we can assist with as part of the recruitment process. 100%, we're happy to
Understood.
help, like any other board or commission.
Thank you. I just got a note, and well, this note came in early, but I'm just now looking at it. I think Councilmember Stiles will be here before the conclusion of our meeting. Would the council members be okay if we move this down to give her an opportunity to move to the Hill today's meeting? Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm not moving forward without the lead sponsor being here, especially if she's planning on. So I'm going to move this down to the Hill. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but was there anything else you wanted to share on that aspect?
Just administrative clarification, which is why I was kind of like going like this.
Yeah.
This bill has been scheduled for 2 committees that are meeting at the exact same time. So I just want to make sure
We'll tag
that
you.
we're where we need
Between,
to.
if we need also, Hannah, we can make sure that we can get your attention if you need to go to the next one.
Come get you if there's
Yeah.
questions, yeah.
I understand it's hard to duplicate yourself to be in more than one place.
Been trying.
All right, thank you all. So we're going to move item number 10 to the Hill to make sure we give, sorry, I shouldn't have struck that. I would have put that down the Hill at the beginning, but I think we got some good information. But we'll make sure the Councilwoman Stiles gets to be here for that. Item number 11, BL 2025-821, ordinance to provide the designation of public property within specified areas of downtown Nashville as a temporary special event zone during the time period at 9:00 p.m. on July 2nd, 2025, and ending at 11:59 on July 5th, 2025, relative to the use of the areas in conjunction with the 2025 July 4th celebration-related activities and events. Is there a motion?
Move. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Okay. The ayes have it. Item number 12, BL 2025-822, an ordinance approving an agreement between Metro Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through Nashville Public Library and Lipscomb University for doctoral students to conduct a capstone research project.
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in support, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions, please let me know. Okay, that is approved. So, we're going down back to the Hill of the calendar of bills. If we can move into the Arts Commission presentation, and then take up the bill, try to give Councilmember Stiles some more time for her bill. But because of that, I think we have until 5:15 scheduled for this meeting. So this gives us nearly 30 minutes for the director. But what we'll do is we'll cut that short so we can make sure we get to the bill. If the council member is not here, then Councilmember Welsh, you'll lead it.
Yeah,
for her,
I
right?
can.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Welcome to the table. Director Batchelder. Councilmember Cap.
Perfect.
You are being marked present. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Actually, we all know who you are, but if you'll, as you're passing out the materials, if you'll identify yourself, and I want to just say thank you for being here. If folks were able to, the Arts Commission was able to present their budget, and I can share if you need an extra one for yourself.
We have enough.
Oh, there should be enough. Oh, there's plenty. Thank you so much for the budget presentation last week. For those who have not been able to watch it, you can go to Metro Nashville Network YouTube and watch it there. And thank you for coming here to give us a report. And just because we've been very engaged as a council in this committee and in with the Arts Commission and with quite a bit that's happened over the last 18 months since we've been in council, we want to make sure we give enough time. So I would like to turn this over to Director Batchelder. Introduce yourself and the information you're sharing, and if folks have questions, I'll make sure. Are you okay with the questions being asked during your presentation, or would you like?
Questions, please
Okay.
do.
Wonderful.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Ashley Batchelder. I'm the interim executive director of Metro Arts since the end of January, and also in the middle here is grants chair, Commissioner Lefkowitz as well. I invited her to the table, but she's my backup if we need it. So. I brought some information. If you have questions about things that are not on here, please ask me other questions as well. But I thought that I would just share sort of a descriptive update about the cycle that we are coming towards the end of right now, and give you sort of a timeline of what to expect for the next cycle. So that's what you have in this packet here, and I'm so used to looking this way, I forgot that there is a slide back there, but you've got the slides in your hands here. So just to tell you how we ended up very rapidly implementing the FY25 cycle and the distribution of awards that have been going out for the last month or so. That's what the first few slides here are about. So as you probably know, we have our two different grant programs, General Operating, which is our arts organizations, and our Thrive projects, which are, or Thrive grants, which are project funding. So I'll tell you a little bit about both. First, we have 90 arts organizations that we funded with general operating support with this grant cycle. And I won't go into the weeds on this slide here, but I wanted to provide you the funding formula because every award size for every grantee, or most of them, are different, and it's based on budget size. So we don't have like a standard, a $20,000 grant, a $25,000 grant. It's calculated based on the revenues of your organization, and so that's sort of the theory behind the funding model. And this just shows the math of how that is done. And so I think that's important to be able to explain, and if you have questions, I can like walk through an example there, but as we are sort of settling into using a model like this for 2 years now, we have a lot of those questions of like, why is my award size this amount and not that amount? And so it's because it is very custom based on the revenue size of the organization. So I can answer questions about that, but mainly what I wanted to show you is how it looks for the distribution of our 90 organizations. And so this image here shows the distribution of award sizes from micro to large. That's how we categorize our arts organizations by budget. So micro is our smallest organizations that have a budget of $0 up to $25,000, and it goes all the way up to large. So we support organizations of all sizes, organizations of all focus and discipline, and our award sizes range from about $1,000 to $66,000 this year. And one thing that I think is important to say about this is that this year, grant sizes were smaller than they have been in past years for every size organization. And that's because of a couple of reasons. It's because our budget hasn't grown over the years, and it's because we've allocated a greater proportion to our Thrive program. And so the total operating budget is smaller, and we're doing this new way of calculating awards. So happy to answer questions about that, but that just kind of shows a visual representation of the 90 organization grants that we gave out this year. And then this one shows by council district. And so these are the dollars by council district, not the number of grants, but you see the scale there on the side. And so if you don't see your council district represented here, my first question would be, do you have an arts organization in your district? And we're hoping as we launch the next cycle that council members can of course help us spread the word about opportunities to your constituents.
So moving forward, is this model with less money going to operating grants and more to Thrive, is that just going to continue as is? Or is this sort of to make up ground?
The distribution between Thrive and operating will be a policy decision every year of the commission, and we've shown, a priority focus of funding Thrive at larger amounts than it has been in the 10 years it has been. So what I have been telling grantees, because I know how important it is for organizations to be able to plan and project what's likely or what's probable, is that in your planning, we should think of similar size awards.
Okay.
Of course, nothing is guaranteed, but I will not be recommending like a radically different structure for this next cycle. And once I have a timeline at the end of this, so you'll see the exact dates when we make those decisions more firm as well. So that's operating. So again, that's our arts organizations. Thrive is our other funding program. These are our project grants. When we talk about Thrive, we often talk about the individual artists. Organizations that are not art specific are also able to apply for this. So example, if there's an organization that provides refugee resettlement services and they have an art program, they would be eligible to apply for Thrive. And so it's accessible to individuals or to non-arts specific nonprofits. So we had 75 projects that we funded through the Thrive program. And this slide, similar to the other dot chart, just shows the distribution of where those are. So we've got 75 dots on here, and there's two colors here. The blue dots here are on the lower end of the dollar scale. Those are fully funded at the requested amount that they applied for. So if you say, why did this one only get $4,000? It's because they only asked for $4,000. And then when we come up to the larger end, our pink dots were funded at 93% or above. And so you see this concentration of grantees here. Those were those who asked for the maximum ask that could be allowed to be asked. And so what this shows is that we funded the Thrive request at 93% or more. So project integrity was very important to us, and as best as we could in the constraints of the timeline that we were operating on. But we know if somebody asks for $20,000 and we only grant $5,000, is that project really going to be successful? So this just shows sort of the objective behind funding at that level.
Can I ask one more question? What, with these grants, what mile markers do the projects, the grantees have to reach before the end of FY25?
Yeah, so that is a good question, and it will be specific to what was submitted in the proposal. And so part of the applications that were evaluated included a timeline and what was proposed to be done in that timeline. So what people applied for is what they will be reporting on come the end of the project. And so there's a lot of challenging circumstances that you all are well aware of how short that spending period became. But we worked with a lot of applicants to adjust their timelines, and we're certainly hearing from folks now who are saying, well, I have to adjust this way, is that okay? And the intent of the project work is still happening. Okay. And so we'll be, the period, the reporting or the spending, the project period ends on June 30th. So
In theory, can they get no cost extensions where they just have a period of time to get a report complete, or?
The reports won't be due until later in July. I and we, the commission, have been operating under the knowledge that we just cannot extend beyond the fiscal year. We tried that in January when we were coming to pass the guidelines and just couldn't find a way to do it because of closeout requirements for fiscal year dollars.
Okay.
So here is the distribution of Thrive dollars by council district, and so you see there is a greater spread here for Thrive projects, which makes sense because these are funding projects and not organizations. And so I think it's 27 different districts that are represented here. So we don't reach into every district, but we reach into most. And then what I've got here, you all know, we talked about this the last time I came and visited. We have implemented a requirement of fiscal sponsorship. If you're an individual applying for a grant, that's just a requirement that we can only enter a grant contract agreement with a 501c3 nonprofit, and so individuals who were applying had to identify a fiscal sponsor. And so one element of that everybody had to navigate was, with the fiscal sponsor be charging an administrative fee. An allowable fee is up to 10%, a fee is not required. And so you see the numbers here of how many fiscal sponsors we contracted with. So of the 75 Thrive projects, there were 59 projects or 59 individuals who had to work with a fiscal sponsor this year. Of those 59, there were 33 unique fiscal sponsors. So we know that some organizations supported multiple artists through this. And you see the distribution of the fees here. There were 22 projects that had no fee at all charged to them. And then you can see up to the 18 that did have that maximum 10% fee charged. This one is similar to an image information I've shown before, but it just shows the overall distribution of funds. As I highlighted before, the increased allocation to Thrive has been a priority for this commission in the last few years, so you see that reflected in the data as well. And then my second to last slide here. This just shows where we are for distribution of funds. We had the first grant payment go out on April 18th, and so the money has been going out in the last month, and we have distributed 3.1 of our $3.2 million. And so that remainder are just some that I can tell you why they haven't gone out, but individual cases that are getting caught up with vendor issues or other contract issues. And then this is really my last informational slide. This is a timeline that I gave my commission yesterday about what my goals are for implementing the next cycle. And you see the steps that we go through to get our guidelines approved for the next cycle, and then the application period, and then what I project for our contracting and invoicing and distribution. Once we get down to this part, I've learned some tricks, as I've learned so much about our finance systems, about how to, make things move a little faster than they did this year. But what you all should be aware of, where you come into this, of course, is when we will bring our guidelines to you for approval. So I've got that tentatively projected for July the 15th. That comes after I will be going to my Arts Commission for guideline approval on June 26th. And so I have this asterisk here because, of course, everything as laid out in this timeline is assuming a passage on July 15th. And so I will do everything that you all, questions you might have before we get to July 15th so that you feel knowledgeable about what I'm bringing you at that point. But this is the timeline that we are working on.
With that, is that the end of your presentation? Because I'm going to turn it over for questions. I do want to flag just one thing. We have quorum, so I do want to get to your other bill before. So if people have to start leaving, please let us know, because if we have to go back into session to make, to address the bill that's before we lose quorum, I would like to do that. So that'll be the one thing I inject on. But Councilmember Stiles, do you have a question?
Are we going back to my bill, or I can
No.
ask
No,
questions?
no
Okay, all right,
questions.
good.
I just want to make
Okay.
sure that we get to your bill since we had to move it to the Hill.
Awesome, thank you very much, Chair. I have a couple of questions. So, from the people that appealed during the last commission meeting, there were still some communication issues between the grants manager and community members. How is that being resolved?
I'm not sure of outstanding communication issues since the commission meeting. I have reached out to the appellant twice, and I have not received information back. And so if there is an issue, I'm not aware of it, but if you're in communication with someone, I'm happy to jump into the conversation if there is one happening.
Fantastic. We will do that. There were 201 projects previously, only 77 reapplied to do projects. And apparently due to some communication errors, I have been receiving individual questions, hence what I have in front of me, from artists, from organizations about this process. There's still a lot of dissatisfaction. So, how did we go from such a high number from where Daniel got it to where we are again, which seems we've rolled back in time back to where we don't want to be? So what is the plan so that we can get people, so we can get another 201 people to apply and feel like this system has not reverted back to an inequitable system? What are we doing?
There were 201 applications at the time last year. I've seen that 77 number, and it's not quite. There was probably about 100 that came back, and then a number that we had to disqualify during the technical review for not meeting requirements or criteria. I'm happy to send you those exact numbers as well. I don't have them on me, but we funded 75 projects this year, and it reduced from the 200 number to the 75 qualifying ones for all the sorts of things that happen in a year of no activity. And so there were some people who withdrew their own application, who might have just moved on to different project works. There were some who just did not come back and touch the application at all. So we eliminated, or we had to disqualify some for just no activity because there was no confirmation that they still wanted their application considered. There were those were the main things, is no activity and no updates. And because of the program changes, there were updates that were required. So for your second part of your question, what are we doing to make sure that we have a high number of applications again? The same things that we did that led to that in the first time. And so we've got our community engagement team that has been, he gets questions all the time about when applications are going to open up again. We had about probably 30 applicants who thought that when the application reopened for updates in January that it was opening up, so we had people coming wanting to apply, being like, oh, Metro Arts next cycle is open. So, we've been growing our list just through people coming to us, and also we have strategies for going to people. And so we've been doing our community engagement sessions that we started back in the beginning of April, and we'll just continue using our networks, relationships, word of mouth. I mean, once we open applications, I know people will begin to hear about it as well.
Thank you, Chair. So for artists that haven't received their checks, what were the issues there? Have those been resolved, or has everyone been paid? So if we ask anybody, they're going to say you got their check.
There are 6 that have not been paid. 2 is because we do not have contracts. I can't approve a payment if somebody hasn't signed their grant contract. 1 is a vendor issue that is being resolved. 1 is a check that went to the wrong address, and so we had to cancel it, and it's waiting for that to go back through. The other 2 are, I'll get you details on 6. The number 4 and number 5 are slipping my mind. But I will say we had a number that were being held up that just got approved on Friday of last week. And so it's vendor issues. You have to get into iSupplier. You've got to make sure all of your stuff is right if you have a keystroke error somewhere. And we as staff do not have access to that. And so it is fully on the vendor side. And so those issues flag to us when people tell us that they haven't been paid. And so we had some of those that were happening that were brought to our attention, but we had a number that were resolved. We had probably about 5 that were resolved last week.
Fantastic. And then the study that we talked about last year getting done, is that in process? Did it get done? We just haven't talked about it at all with everything else going on?
Yeah, thank you for asking that because I forgot to mention that. So you all, the council, passed an amendment, I believe, last year for a disparity study, which is a specific legal and financial study that really looks at procurement processes and benchmarks for things like minority and women participation with vendors. We do a disparity study as a city for things like construction contracts and things, and so there were talks at times within Metro Arts about the potential need for a disparity study because of the leadership changes and the other challenges of the last year, and because Thrive changed how it is run now. So Thrive is no longer being run as a procurement process, and so I say all that to say that needs to be thought about in a lot more intentional way than there has been capacity and leadership to think about it in the last year. And so it would require a lot of staff capacity, and it would just require very strategic thought about if we do this, then it will impact or it will guide how we do things moving forward when it comes to contracting, right? And so my opinion right now, knowing that we are not going to have a disparity study, which would probably take a year to do when we go into our next grant cycle, is knowing that we can still build funding models and do outreach in ways that we know we are reaching our communities and that we have equitable outcomes based on how we define that when we look at like the outcomes that we have in our grants. So I don't know if that fully answers
Not really.
your question.
We gave you money to do the study, so it hasn't been done. When is the study going to get done? I guess that would be like my most succinct way of asking the question. Because I know that was a consistent issue last year, is that a study hadn't been done. And then there was a proposal of using a construction study, which seems ridiculous. If we're gonna do a study that's based on arts and based in equity in arts, when will we do that? Because you got money for that for this year.
Yeah, so I would be happy to get back with my chair, because a conversation was had before I was in this role about why that wasn't, I don't know if possible is the right word. I'm gonna say possible, or what's something lighter than possible, but why that wasn't done before. The question of when are we going to do it, I don't have an answer for that right now, but we need a lot of like legal guidance on that as well, because it's a legal fit. It's a little different than like a qualitative research study. Like a disparity study is a legal procedure that looks at things that I'm not super prepared to talk about right now, but I would be happy to follow up with more information.
So is that, I'm so sorry, Chair.
Well, just to follow up on that, can you circle up this evening, speak with the chair, or tomorrow, and circle back and get us some type of plan, if that's going to be effectuated, and also making sure if those funds were, I can't recall how that was written in its funding mechanism, but if it's still on the books for this coming cycle, I mean, if that's funds that you can still utilize for that. If it's not, then let us know that as well. Sorry, keep going.
No,
Chair, if
actually,
you-
I mean, I'm
So
going
if
to
you could let
piggyback
us
off of
know,
that.
yeah.
Is, so that money, I think it was $250,000 that we gave additionally. So is that money still in the budget? Has it been used for anything else, so that we know it's still there, so when it's time to do said study?
It has not
Is
been
able to
used
be
for
done.
anything else. I was under the impression that it just goes back to wherever money goes back that is unused. But I'm not an expert in the budget, so I will follow up.
Okay. And I do see Councilmember Bradford. Before that, we do have a...
Yes, please, Madam
Do you want to speak to this, the disparity studies?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradford, do you mind if I recognize Reverend Tucker, if he's going to come?
Well, I would yield to Councilman.
So, Reverend Tucker, you okay if I recognize
Yeah,
Reverend
go
Tucker?
ahead.
If you'll identify yourself,
David
everything.
Tucker, Executive Director of MHRC. During the course of the money being approved for the feasibility study, MHRC was never in agreement with that, primarily because it is a legal function, and it secured what we thought would be what equity is being gained now. Without it, it basically turns it into an entitlement. And so the rush to do a disparity study was in the midst of all of that. And I think what some folks think a disparity study does, it doesn't do. It creates a special group that gets special attention, that can often work for you and against you. And so for us, we were never in agreement with the disparity study. And I think as things have gone on and you've gotten the conciliation agreement, we would still maintain that disparity study would be harmful more than helpful when the board now has the ability to construct formulas and models for the distribution of funds without having to consider the outcomes of a disparity study. And so I think Metro Legal might need to come and explain to you all exactly what a disparity study is. That I think the board now, the commission now, in the way in which they as a group are not restrained by the possibilities of what could be the findings of a disparity study.
Okay,
It's
thank you
really
for,
about contracting and benchmarks in your contracting, and so yeah.
I know Councilmember Stiles is probably gonna have a follow-up, but I don't want to belabor or not recognize Councilmember Bradford, so Councilmember Bradford, you're recognized.
So my question is pretty much about the budget process and the money that was allocated for this year not being spent. So is that $250,000 just going to, was that basically returned to Metro as savings since y'all didn't spend it? Or is that $250,000 in your FY25 budget request?
It is not in my, the budget request, includes a request for a modest increase in our grants budget. So we're not spending the money that was allocated for a disparity study for anything else.
And you're not asking for that money for this upcoming budget?
Not for the purpose of what it was allocated for in that.
Not a new request.
But if they were funded $250,000 or something and they didn't spend it,
No, I
then that money comes back to the
It's
general fund.
215, and
215.
I need to check if that was held in the admin count the same way that our grants funds were held in the admin account. So for we build the administrative account for our grants because what we did get from you all last year was put in this account that, wasn't directly in our budget. And so when I check on the disparity study money, I'm gonna see if that is in the admin account as well, because if it is, then it never came to us in the first place. I could access it, but it's not.
Follow up on that, and then also maybe be prepared to come back next council or committee meeting and give us that report out, because that will also give us more time to kind of hone in on that. We are over budgeted time, but we've got time in here. If folks aren't leaving, if you can hang tight with me. Councilmember Stiles, I want to make sure I recognize you.
Thank you, Chair, for the new bill. So, Councilmember Sepulveda and I came to.
Oh, do you want to do the bill? No, I just want to make sure we're still doing.
Oh, I have so many more questions. I'm just going to wait till she comes back. Let's just go on and do the
Okay,
bill.
let me do this. Okay, let me do this and make sure. So, if folks are hanging on and listening, because I know we do have folks that really do care. So what we'll do is coordinate. Would you be able to come back at the next council meeting, to next committee meeting? So I'll work with the council office to budget additional time with that, and then we'll pick up right there where we've left off. Arts Commission member Lefkowitz, looks like you're wanting to be recognized. We're gonna.
I just wanted to say that we had a grants committee meeting yesterday, and we're trying to be very transparent in our discussions and deliberations. We're not trying to make big changes, but that would be something, if you didn't have a chance to watch. And then we have a commission meeting on Thursday where we'll have more discussion about FY26. So just.
Great. Well, and if you want to send just a reminder note out to me, then I can send that out to the entire committee as with links of where to go back and watch those particular committees for this week. That'd be great. With that, council members, we're going to invite Ashley to come back. We'll pick up there. Thank you for being here, and then we will move into. So your bill, we are up on the. On Councilmember Stiles' bill, we have a first, second. We've had discussion on your bill. I think, what are we, number 10, BL 2025-818. We have a first, second. We've had discussion. Councilmember Welch did a fantastic job making sure this moved through. We had some discussion with some explanations from Mr. Roseberg from the Mayor's Office, answering the question, Ms. Hall from Human Resources. But with that, are there any other questions for the bill before we vote?
I just want to ask the primary sponsor, the one question that came up was, it doesn't really define in black and white who does the appointing, how they're vetted, how they are to be removed, if there's a reason to remove. So as prime sponsor, can you kind of shed light on does it specifically say who does the appointing, how they're vetted, are they, do they go through count, like whatever, and then if with other boards and commissions, we have a means of removing folks. So can you answer that for me?
Councilmember Stiles.
Yes, Councilman Bradford. So, as part of this lovely kumbaya, the
That's what you wanna call it.
commission, the commission whittles down the list to come up with the candidates that are then turned over to the mayor, for the mayor to make the determination of who the director is going to be. And then the size remaining the same. I wanted to be sure that I covered everything. So they get to stay the same size that they're staying, and then we have the advisory committees, which were originally created in the very first bill because as part of that tense agreement, we got rid of all of the other entertainment industries. So the commission is only music, film, and entertainment. And so the advisory committees would allow for being able to address things like theater, fashion, dance, all the other industries that are here, voiceovers, and whatnot. And they would be subject to the same accountability that commissioners are. So was there something that popped up? I thought I saw you moving in the side.
I'm just seeing Hannah's furrowed brow. And, so that's, Hannah, did you have something?
I just wanted to say, I think, if I understood correctly,
Thank you.
I was thinking that Councilmember Bradford's question was specific to the advisory committee appointment process, correct?
It was
That's
gonna
what,
be.
Councilman, sorry. That's what Mr. Rosenberg was, I think, talking about when he was talking about there not being a process laid out. I think that was specific to the advisory committee.
So not to the actual.
So not to the board,
Not to the board.
not to the executive director, so
okay,
just
okay.
wanted to
So-
clarify that.
Thank you. With that clarification, does that help with that aspect? So it's not applying to the board, it's to the advisory, and that's the, okay, all right.
Yes.
Perfect. Are there any other?
And now we don't have it, we're good. We're not
Okay.
battling, we are happy. I would just like to move this forward. So that, because this commission, literally right now, the administration, legal, has basically put everything on hold, not giving out any information. They don't know what's going on. The people that were asked if they were still interested, no one will tell them what is happening with that. So as long as we continue to deliberate, the longer the commission is still without an executive director. And I think, given that Councilmember Sepulveda and I have been able to come to a meeting of the minds where we're both quasi unhappy, that means we're winning. So, and the commissioners haven't spoken to the chair and the vice chair. They are okay as well. As you know, you heard from them before. They had been blindsided. We don't have any of that happening right now. So we are in a good place. So I would really ask.
Mildly unhappy sounds like we're all feeling.
You know what I mean? Exactly. So I would ask that we approve this,
Any other
please.
questions of Chairwoman Stiles here, of her bill? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, we have, oh, and look. we're-
Awesome sauce.
We got
Yay.
7, 8, 9.
Wow. All clear? It's a miracle. This just me.
You're like, is there another one? Okay, with that, everyone, we've invited Director Interim Director Batchelder back for next week, so you didn't get out of that too long there, Eastlick. And then we are also going to have another guest, TVD, who spoke with us in the earlier iteration, but it's going to be back on their agenda. If there's anyone else you want to hear from, please reach out. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all in favor? Yay!
You looked like your
All right,
head
let me
was
take-
about to. About the thing.
Hey, why didn't you tell me I was supposed to